Welcome back and now to the main conversation on the big question. Currently in Nigeria, is democracy in practice or is it only theoretical? As we assess governance in the last 2 years under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the policies he has taken and the reflection of its impacts on the Nigerian people. Our next guest joining us virtually is Professor Sheriff Ghali Ibrahim, Head of Department, Political Science and International Relations, and Director of the International Center, University of Abuja. Hello, Prof. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. A happy Democracy Day to you.
Now, happy Democracy Day.
Thank you as well.
Nigerians and you.
Now, the first big question is, currently in Nigeria, assessing in the last 2 years, is democracy in action or it is only theoretically speaking?
Well, we're actually at the crossroads. One cannot actually and unilaterally argue that democracy is at work. Looking at the fundamental principles of democracy, we can actually argue that it is more of a theory. Why? Because there is no entity, there is no nation on earth that is actually fully democratic. So when you look at the ambience of governance and leadership around the world, you come to understand that the so-called advanced societies in Europe, the United States of America, and others around the world, they are not fully democratic. If you look at the nature of governance and leadership, you come to understand that what is practically obtainable deviate the veritable principles of democracy and democratic governance. So coming back home, looking at President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, he has made so many attempts actually to improve governance, to actually implement the renewed hope agenda for Nigeria. But yet, it is when we are there, we can argue that democracy is actually, at play. But when we are not yet there, we have to be objective in terms of an logical interpretation to argue that we are not yet there to the side of democracy. The reasons are democracy envisages people's participation in governance. So people's participation does not only mean people to cast vote at elections. It also means that people should be able to have a say in the process of governance. If a direct one, it means that everybody has to contribute physically and presently to the decisions to be made for this particular country, Nigeria. But not a direct one. It is a representative democracy through which Nigerians vote for their representatives who will in turn represent them at the National Assembly. So the issue here is that how frequent do the representatives of the Nigerian people hold a town hall meeting with these people? When do they listen and hear the aspirations and yearnings of the Nigerian people? There are people who could tell you that ever since the National Assembly was actually inaugurated, they never saw their member representing them or even their senator. So this is one fundamental principle of democracy, which is participation. Either you directly involve or participate, or indirectly get involved through representation. Then another issue is the issue of election, which is the, let's say, minimal interpretation or minimalist point of view, of democracy, which is competitive elections. And it is through this particular periodic so-called free and fair elections that people will actually get to participate in democracy or democratic journey. So if you look at it critically, you come to understand that people have already developed what is known as political apathy. Majority of the people no longer go to polling unit to cast their vote, thinking that the system is flawed. The system will not actually provide to them the dividends that democracy has actually promised. So these are some of the things that participation actually come along with. Then apart from this, if you should look at the issue of economic freedom, which allows people to actually look for their livelihood, the liberty to economic freedom, and liberty to really seek economic benefits and survive within an entity. The president has actually promised economic reforms. And due to these particular promises, Nigerians have become so hopeful that the economic transformation will actually yield some positivity, in terms of a dividend of democracy. But if you critically the indices from 2024 to 2025, come to understand that inflation has been on the increase. So when you have inflation, poverty level will increase in the nation. And more than 23% level of inflation is something big that Nigerians should not actually experience due to the rising cost of living in the country. Then apart from this, you also think of employment and unemployment. Unemployment has been on the rise, from 2023, even, before the president actually came to power. And after he came to power, unemployment kept increasing. And the level of development of an entity is also being, computed or analyzed using the indices of, employment or non-availability of employment opportunities to the citizenry. So if unemployment is on the increase, then this showcases that means that Nigeria has a long way to go in terms of getting people out of poverty. You need to give people jobs. Even though Mr. President has promised more than 130 jobs, recently, but we are yet to see that. Until when Nigerians are able to see that and Nigerians are able to be employed, before we argue that Nigerians are fully employed, even though they can never be fully employed, but at least the level of unemployment should actually go down. This is one major area of concern in order to gauge democratic principle, democratic journey, as well as the delivery of democratic dividend to the citizenry everywhere. Then you come to the issue of security, which democratically people should actually feel safe. And people who don't feel safe, it means that democracy has not actually worked for them. Because collectively speaking, if people are to directly or indirectly engage in a democratic activity, they will voice out their demand and that particular need to be secure. And that is the fundamental objective of the creation of state, right from the veritable engagement between the weaker population and the stronger population to sign the social contract. So the social contract is all about security. It's all about the duties of the government to be fully discharged. So if people feel secure, it means democracy is at work. So Nigerians do not feel safe, either in the urban or rural areas. That particular safety net is not guaranteed. So when democracy works is when people feel safe and secure, which is not actually guaranteed anywhere in Nigeria, not in the northern part of the country, not in the eastern part of the country, not in the western part of the country, not even in Abuja, which is the federal capital territory. Nobody can guarantee anybody's safety in Nigeria. So if this is the case, it means that we have a long way to achieve democratic principle. We have a long way to actually land, on the promised land. So democracy can be regarded to be more theoretical than practical in terms of Nigeria, African, or even any place's democracy. Why? Because it is more of a theory, because nobody feels secure, nobody feels that particular safe in terms of governance, in terms of domestication of security safety net. Then apart from this, the issue of equality, which democracy guarantees. Nigeria and the regime of Ahmed Asuwaju Bola Tinubu has not actually guaranteed that. That particular gap of inequality is every day increasing. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So democracy, it aberrates the principle of democracy if the gap of inequality keeps widening and the attempt to bridge up the gap is not actually successful. So it means democracy is more of a theory than actually practicability. Then apart from this, the issue of majority rule and minority right. If you look at the human rights in the country, you discover that I tried to campaign and advise Mr. President to tolerate opposition, to tolerate constructive criticism. The issue of this professor, is it Professor Yusuf? I forgot his name, who was actually arrested by EFCC, taken to Kuje. The issue of Gudaji Kazaure and the rest of them. These are all issues that human rights activists and Nigerians were not happy with. People were protesting for the release of these particular people, presumably because these people were talking the truth and the reality on the ground and tasking the government to take an absolute action in terms of corruption, in terms of official corruption in the country. So I want to advise Mr. President that to be a Democrat is when you allow for constructive criticisms, but we do not allow and we do not motivate people to go labeling the government as well as unnecessarily abusing the government. But a democratic citizen should be able to criticize the government constructively, being part of pressure group, trade unions, to redirect the intention of the government in order to fulfill all righteousness and perfect the tenet and pillars of governance. So the democracy does not actually work if you keep arresting people, undermining freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association. And we hope that democratic principle should be well manifested in the Ahmed Bola Tinubu's government by tolerating activists and by tolerating constructive criticisms. This will actually ensure that democracy is at practice. But as far as we are concerned, presently, that aberrates the principle of democracy, looking at the abuse of human rights as well as intolerance to, criticisms as well as campaign by the government to improve its style of governance.
All right.
Then apart from this,
Now, Prof, this has been quite a robust background you've painted to the topic on ground on democracy in action or theory. I'd like to ask a few questions, as much as we have little less than 10 minutes to wrap up the conversation, and let's walk it from the latter points you raised up until the former. The angle for allowing for criticism or alternative policies to government. Today, there's also a move by certain protesters who are looking to demonstrate, calling for urgent actions to address the hardship and insecurity which have largely spoken of. We've seen a deviation from the normal ritual of having a parade at the Eagle Square and a national broadcast today the president is looking to address a joint session of the National Assembly. I don't know, is this to give room to the said protest or not have a clash of interests if the protesters would be at the Eagle Square? What do you make of this deviation from the national parade, which usually marks Democracy Day?
Well, Democracy Day is be so called in terms of celebration. Always in Nigeria, it has been part of our tradition and culture. But Mr. President has Nigerians why the shift in this particular tradition, celebrating Democracy Day at the Eagle Square. Is it to cut costs, to reduce the cost of celebrating democracy, or is there any security report or threat that actually galvanizes Mr. President and his cabinet, or even advisors to advise him not to celebrate democracy? Or is it because of the move by National Assembly that even swearing in of Mr. President will now begin to be conducted, as they actually intend to sponsor this particular bill? The such swearing in will be holding at the National Assembly. And secondly, Mr. President should rather be addressing the nation in a State of the Union address in a joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate. So this is not bad, because democracy is all about the people. Representatives of the Nigerian people are actually domiciled at the National Assembly. So if Mr. President should go to the National Assembly and address a joint session of the National Assembly, and through a broadcast that Nigerians can be able to see, I think it's a welcome idea. But my fear is that when we are trying to have an African democratic dream, African democratic system, which must not necessarily be a prototype of Western or American democracy, but we are rather deepening our spirit into the Western style democracy. Because the address to the, joint session of the National Assembly or houses of the legislature or parliament is a tradition of the West, which we see in the United States of America. State of the Union address is usually, given in this particular joint session. So I wholly believe that those who wish to sponsor this particular bill, they must have been observing the American, democratic system, as well as the State of the Union address, and to recommend that Nigeria should also follow suit. If this is the case, I believe that we are not growing democratically, but rather we should have a tradition back home. We should also maintain our democratic tradition as recorded in the past. There is the need for improvement, of course, there is no doubt about it, but we should be politically and democratically independent, not by necessarily importing Western traditions into our democratic culture. If there is a way, we should be able to cancel even the so-called parliamentary and presidential style of Western democracy by entrenching a kind of a more African, more African style of democracy that is actually hinged on African, tradition, African belief, African, norms and values. That will actually consolidate a different democratic system and a democratic principle.
All right.
Because there is no development in, copying from other people. We as a people, we need to be independent. We need to do away with colonial experience. We need to develop a path to Africa's democratic modernization, as well as fulfilling democratic goals in our own way.
Now, Prof, lastly, before you go, it's a big debate, and it's off the back of the hero of Nigeria's democracy in context of the June 12, 1993 election, the late Chief M.K. Abiola. There are many people who are of the opinion that if there is indeed an acceptance that the June 12 election was annulled wrongly and that he won, that he is deserving of posthumous presidential benefits. Do you tilt in that direction, or do you beg to disagree?
No. I agree. June 12 was a success, was a victory to Abiola and Nigeria. So we believe in that particular victory of the June 12 election. I wholly believe that if such honor, as well as all entitlement of such an electioneering process, as well as victory by Moshood Abiola, then all those particular entitlement should be accorded to his family members in lieu of what should have been given to him in that particular time of that particular victory. Nigerians, I believe, will be in support of that. There should be no call for celebrating Democracy Day if we do not recognize and agree to pay Abiola such entitlement or his family. So we as Nigerians, we strongly believe in that, and we strongly agree that what belongs to Abiola in terms of the victory should be accorded to his family as a kind of appeasement to what Nigeria or Nigerian leadership has actually done wrongly against Abiola and
then
Nigeria.
for the INEC chair at the time, Professor Humphrey Nwosu, there are also persons pushing that he received some posthumous awards as well.
Awards, previously given, and if there is also a kind of an attempt or a kind of a plan to give such an award, why not? Why? Because even though such awards will not actually change nothing, because history has already recorded with a permanent marker or a permanent paint, which can never be erased. But if that is found, it is still to honor MKO Abiola, to honor family, his cause which he died for, which was democracy and democratic principles for Nigerian people. So any award that could be actually awarded to Abiola, now, it's a great idea, but unfortunately, that does actually bring Abiola back, and that will not actually change, the hands of time. And that will not bring him back to govern Nigeria under the victory banner which he has actually recorded.
Well, I must thank you, Professor, for taking out time to lend your thoughts to the conversation this morning. We're wishing you the best of the rest of the holiday. Have a nice day.
Thank you, and happy Democracy Day.
Happy Democracy Day to you.